The following podcast contains alcohol-enhanced conversations about alcohol, as well as a potential for discussions about topics of dubious, disturbing, possibly offensive, but usually hilarious interest. The opinions stated herein are solely of the persons making them, and any endorsement of these opinions by any other party is not implied. Foul language is likely, but intolerant viewpoints are not. Listener intoxication is advised. Hello and welcome to episode 79 of the Whiskey Tangent Podcast. I'm Scott.
I'm Ed.
And if you've been listening to us recently, you'll know that we said we were following through on a promise to ourselves that we made 3 years ago. And that promise was fulfilled just 3 weeks ago at long last when we finally went on our Kentucky road trip. And now we're back, fully recovered and ready to talk about all the distilleries, tours, whiskeys, meals, and everything else that happened in this quite literally explosive recap of our epic trek through Bourbon Country. And joining us on this virtual travelogue, just as he joined us on the journey itself, Jeff, the Knight Who Says Neat.
Hello.
So without further ado, Ed will get us going by quickly running down the list of the 12 distilleries we visited and give a preview of the 6 new whiskeys we brought back with us that we'll be tasting on air for the first time tonight.
Thanks, Scott. So in 5 days in Kentucky, we were able to visit 12 distilleries. They are in order. By city in Louisville, we went to Evan Williams, Angel's Envy, Prohibition Craft Spirits, who put out Nulu, Kentucky Peerless, and Old Forester. Then we moved down the road to Bardstown, where we, through no ironic tone at all, went to the Bardstown Bourbon Company.
That's right.
Visited Lux Row, Heaven Hill, Willett, and Jim Beam. Plus the Clearmont Supper Club dinner, which we'll talk about in detail. And then for the last day, we went to Hagersburg, right?
Harrodsburg.
Yeah, what Scott said.
Well, our house was in Harrodsburg, but the distilleries are in Lawrenceburg.
Right, in Lawrenceburg. And there we went to 2 classics. I really think it was a great way to end the trip.
Yeah.
4 Roses and Wild Turkey was the last distillery that we went to. We brought a bunch of whiskeys back, 6 of which we're going to try today, through no order or anything, or maybe they are.
They are.
They are, actually, now that I look at the list. The whiskey's in perfect order. We start with the JTS Brown Bottle and Bond Bourbon, 100 proof. The Old Forester 1910 Old Fine Whiskey, 93 proof. Out at Lux Row, 4-grain double single barrel bourbon, 115 proof. And then Basil Hayden Malted Rye, 80 proof. Give us a little break there before we go into
Right.
2 high test ones from 4 Roses. Scott and I each picked up a 4 Roses single barrel strength bourbon. His was 118.4, but haha, not to be outdone. Mine was 125.8. And this involved their 2 mash bills and their multiple yeast strains.
Yeah.
And we'll get into much more detail about that.
Absolutely.
And so we have a lot in store. We're not sure if this is going to be one giant episode or it might end up being part 1 or part 2.
Yeah, definitely 2 parts.
Yeah, you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now. I'm thinking like this is a lot to get in for an hour.
Yeah, especially because of just the editing time. Like I wouldn't have.
I thought you
time to edit
I
it.
thought you were going to say just because of Ed. I already was taking offense, especially because of Ed, and I got immediately got defensive.
Well, you put the Ed in it, as we all know. All right, so the format of what we're doing, we're going to go by day. We drove down on Sunday. We spent Monday and Tuesday in Louisville, Wednesday and Thursday in Bardstown and nearby Clearmont, and then Friday in Lawrenceburg and drove back Saturday. So we'll describe the tours at each distillery, the whiskeys we tasted on those tours, the meals we had in between, and even some of the stops we made along the way. Then at the end of talking about each day, we'll drink 1 or 2 of the whiskeys that we bought on that day.
Yes.
Part 1 is this part we'll cover through Wednesday, and then part 2 will be the rest of the week and our final thoughts about our experience. So Ed, just get us started with Sunday.
Right. So Sunday we're driving down there, and if you don't stop, if you like pee in like a Gatorade bottle or something, you could do it in about 10 and a half hours. It took us about 12. We did really well in the morning. Jeff started out. He drove 4.5 hours, no problem. We stopped at the convenience store, gassed up. I took over, and then of course it started to pour rain. So we got to Ohio, and we're getting a little bit peaked. We want a little food. And so just picked a random bar. And we had a lot of luck with this trip, but not so much that time, though it was an interesting experience. inexperienced, we picked the only bar that didn't make food. So we walked into the second thing is the Eagles were playing Dallas. We wanted to watch the second half. And so Scott had to actually set their TV up so we could watch it. So he was doing that while I was ordering Mexican food from a place down the street that delivers right to the bar. And it's funny, Jeff wanted Mexican food. And I said, no, I don't want to start the trip off of Mexican food because it's set my stomach, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, we ended up getting Mexican food anyway. And it was pretty good. So they kind of started what we saw. The bars down there have a lot of what you want to drink, right? But the thing is, their prices in Ohio and Kentucky are just what we pay in Jersey. If you want a dram of Weller 12-year or full proof, you're going to pay $20, $30 an ounce.
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty surprising. I guess for whatever reason, we thought things were going to be cheaper as we progressed toward Kentucky.
Yeah, we thought when we got to Kentucky, there'd just be like crates of Buffalo Trace stuff on the side of the road, just cracked open and just like grab a couple, like
Jeff, reach out of the car and get the whole crate.
Like water fountains in the school.
Right.
I mean, we're in Kentucky and Ohio. Like, we're going to liquor stores in Kentucky going, hey, you got Blantons, and like laughing at us. Like the same way they laugh at us in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. So,
exactly.
But I will say the bars have the stuff. So if you want to pay a couple dollars, you can drink all the allocated stuff that you have trouble finding in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, wherever you're listening to, California. I don't know how you guys do out there, but I mean, you're flush with Redwood Empire. But besides that, I have no idea what you have. And so that's the biggest thing I want to start the whole podcast off by saying, like, if you're going to Kentucky thinking you're going to be getting Weller and Pappy and George T. Stagg, the Eagle Rare 17, the antique collection at cost.
Yeah, anything that's allocated.
Like, oh, I'll just go down there and get it for $100. Like, no.
Yeah.
They're still under glass for the same type of exorbitant prices. However, the prices were also not inordinately cheap. I saw the same prices for Henry McKenna 10-year, for Willet Rye, for Four Roses, even stuff that's not allocated but hard to get, like the Bakers and the Bookers. They're all pretty much priced in Kentucky the same that I pay for New Jersey. In fact, quite a few things I could get cheaper in New Jersey than in Kentucky.
Yeah, there were a couple.
Now, I will say this. Kentucky does offer a lot of Kentucky-only things at distilleries that you can't get elsewhere, and that made the trip special. So don't feel like I was crushingly disappointed. I was more surprised that I couldn't get that stuff easier. Yes, in the bars, no in the stores.
Right. So we got there really late. We checked into our Airbnb. It was the Hobbit house, which was kind of a cool, interesting house to stay in. They had all the Tolkien books and stuff, and they had a whole booklet of how they refurbished the house to make it Tolkien inspired and everything.
Yeah, it was brick on the outside.
Yeah, big giant wooden door on the bottom floor.
Yeah, it was a very cool house.
And that was just 5 to 7 minutes outside of downtown Louisville. So we were really close to all of the distilleries that we did on Monday, which actually was the first real day of our trip.
Good coffee place across the street because we didn't have any supplies when we first got there. So we had a really, really good like croissants and coffee in the next morning.
That was Hotel Marty.
Hotel Marty, that's right. A shout out to one of the whiskey power companies. I will say this. It was the most difficult unparking I've ever seen Scott do. So,
oh my God.
So when you pulled into the place,
Jesus,
it was like a weird angle. And then to get out, it was tight. And they had these big stone columns on the grass, 4 inches high. You know?
Yeah.
So it must have taken, I don't know, 7 minutes, which is incredibly long when you're trying to pull out of a spot.
I know. And it was half of it was because of that situation that you described, but the other half was Jeff's car. And I didn't want to
car.
Yeah, I didn't want to scratch it. It was bigger than the cars that I usually drive, and so
of course Scott's trying to do it. I'm shouting suggestions outside. Maybe Jeff was shouting stuff inside at him.
You guys were trying to help.
And Scott's like, "Oh my God," because I don't understand his problem with the front where the pillars are. Got plenty of room in the back, bro, but he's already up on one of the pillars in the front, but I can't see it. So I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. And he's like, I can't turn. And I'm like, you can. There's plenty of room. It was like that type of a thing.
It's the first day and we're already having arguments. I'm like, is this how it's going to go?
And he's like, I will get out of the car and murder you.
We finally did, and we never parked in the driveway again.
We never parked inside again.
So on Monday, after that was the night before, and then the next morning we were fine.
No, this was leaving that morning.
Oh, it was leaving.
It was leaving to go to the first distillery.
Oh shit, you're right. That's right. So, and the first distillery was Evan Williams.
Yes.
So that was in downtown Louisville. The tour was called the Traditional Tour. So we're going to give you a little description of what it cost and who our guide was, just so that you can compare if you've been or if you're going, that this is the tour that we did. So the Evan Williams Traditional Tour and Bourbon Tasting lasts approximately 1 hour and takes you back in time to meet Kentucky's first licensed distiller, Evan Williams, starting with an exploration of the Louisville Wharf and Whiskey Row from the late 18th century through the present with digital and physical recreations. Following the history portion, you'll learn about the distillation process and how the modern Bernheim distillery compares to how whiskey was made in the late 1800s. The experience concludes with the tasting of 4 Evan Williams bourbons. The price was $18, pretty reasonable, I think.
Yeah.
And our guide was Bob.
Yeah, Bob did a great job. He's a stand-up comic
Right.
at night, and this is something he does during the day. He's definitely a showman. You could tell he's used to being around people and schmoozing and working a crowd. They took us through the process of making it. We saw the fermentation tanks, but they don't bottle it there, right? They just make it there, and then they ship it.
I think so, yeah, because they didn't show us a bottling line.
Right. So one thing I learned is a new respect for tanker trucks. If you see tanker trucks in Kentucky,
Probably got bourbon
there's
in it.
50% oil and gas and 50% whiskey.
That's
A lot of them, that's what they do. They fill up tanker trucks and send them down the road. And they still got flammable warnings on them, so you don't know which is which.
Yeah, the cool part of the tour, I thought, was, well, 2 parts. One, they recreated the town hall meeting where they elected Evan Williams to be the harbor master. And it could have been really cheesy, but it was very well acted, and they had a storm going in the background and stuff. I thought that was really cool. And then they took us through like recreations of like an alley with like storefronts on either side. And that was really interesting.
And they had a lot of old products there, like old bottles from their early days and Prohibition and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They were telling us about what the rectifiers did. I thought that was kind of cool.
Right.
That's like the snake oil salesman that takes a whiskey and he adds stuff to it.
All kinds of weird
Yeah, all
and
kinds of
disgusting
weird
stuff.
and then make claims that it like cures lumbago or something like that.
Right.
But that's what the rectifiers did.
Yeah.
I think that was something I didn't know about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, every one of these tours had something different to say and something different to offer, even though they kind of covered some of the same ground. The whiskeys that we tasted at the tasting were the Evan Williams Single Barrel, the Evan Williams Master Blend, the Evan Williams Square 6, which was one I'd never heard of before, and also another one I didn't know that they had. They have an Evan Williams 12-year.
Right. So 3 things we'd never had before.
Yeah.
And the single barrel, you couldn't get it in New Jersey for a while. They just reintroduced it, I think, late summer. Mm-hmm. So now you can start saying the single barrel is one of the best deals out there if you've never had Evan Williams single barrel. And somewhere around 37 states.
Yeah, pretty reasonable price, right?
$30.
Yeah, $30. I think, Jeff, you brought one back.
I got the Square 6.
Oh, you got the Square 6. Oh.
Even rarer.
I think that was over $100.
Oh.
I think.
Wow.
No, I thought about doing it. So I think it was like, I want to say 84, 89, something like that. Probably 100 with tax and offshore.
Yeah. The Square 6, I think that was referencing their plot of land that they had by the river. It was the 6th square. So that's why they called it Square 6.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I took that to my brother-in-law's for Thanksgiving, and they fucking loved it.
Oh, yeah?
Because the nose of it has an intense cornbread.
Yeah. It's very corny. The
That was fantastic.
Also, because we're special and we said we were from the podcast, we got to visit their speakeasy style event space in
Right.
their basement.
Brian took us downstairs.
Yeah, that was really cool. They had an old timey piano and a
it's
bar set up.
Yeah, it's a place that people can rent for like small events, and they also can hold things there.
All right, and then we stopped at lunch. So just down the street, we were going back to the car.
Like a block away.
Yeah, and we passed this place called the Bristol Bar and Grill, mostly because they had a sign outside that said it was Manhattan Monday.
That's right.
They had $5 Manhattans. And,
Right, made with larceny.
Made with larceny and like a black cherry syrup, I guess, of their own creation.
Well, they had a $5 larceny in Manhattan, but then they had a black cherry one too. They added that's what I got. You got the regular one, I think.
Oh, yeah. I thought they were all the same.
I don't know.
I don't.
I just remember that there was 2.
Yeah, there are a lot of gaps in our memories, folks.
And I wanted to start ordering expensive drams off the menu, and Scott did a one-man temperance movement and just was like, we just got here. We've done one distillery.
I was Carrie Nation. I put my axe in your face.
He's like, we have, he's like, we have 2 more distilleries to do today.
Yeah. Well, it's because you did tell me that. You
Yes.
said you need to bring me under control.
Yeah, I'm like, I get excited. And he's like, it's literally 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
I know. On
Well,
the first
12:30.
day.
And I'm like, all right.
The other thing cool about that was there was a local dish. We asked the waiter, what's your local Kentucky dish? And he said, well, people love our hot brown. And we're like, what the fuck is a hot brown? And tell them what it is.
So hot brown is French bread in the bottom of like a kind of skillet, not a skillet, like an oval
Yeah,
plate.
ceramic thing. Yeah.
Right, and it's French bread at the bottom. ham and turkey next with sliced tomatoes, and then this like a white cream sauce.
Yeah.
Just enough to cover that. And then they blanket it with cheddar cheese and bacon, and then they put it in the broiler.
And we're like, yes.
And we're like,
we'll all have one.
it was when in Rome, right?
Yeah.
And it was absolutely spectacular, just like we thought.
It was great.
And everywhere we went, they had hot browns. I never got another one because that was too decadent. I mean, I tried to mix it up, like eat something bad, then have salmon, eat something bad, then have salad. Jeff was great. Jeff would eat bad, and then he would next time be like, bowl soup and a baked potato. He'd like, yeah, I'm like, but Jeff would wait till I order, like, I'll take the right side of the menu, please. Just like, I'll have a small salad and an apricot. Do you have any apricots?
Apricots.
What are you trying to say?
You were secretly shading Ed.
Well, we were dittos. I was like all over the place, and you're like, I'm gonna have a baked potato and a salad or something. I was like, I'll have the salmon.
You shamed him into having
like,
salmon.
I'll have the salmon. And then we almost died anyway. Had I died that day after the salmon,
right.
I would have been really disappointed in myself.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, that's the next day. That's
we
tomorrow.
almost died. Remember that. Foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing. The other stop we did before going on to the next distillery was we went to get some staple foods.
We went to Kroger's.
Kroger's for the first time. I've heard of Kroger's all my life, and there we went to one, and it wasn't that great. It was just
we got coffee, creamer.
It was a grocery store.
Some fruit, yogurt, protein bars, stuff like that.
Yeah. So the next distillery was Angel's Envy, located also in downtown Louisville. We went back.
Yeah, it wasn't far, right? Was it?
It was pretty close.
2 blocks, 3 blocks from everyone's, right?
Yeah. So the tour we took was the private select tour.
Yeah.
Their description is one paragraph. Go beyond the surface and take an in-depth look in the art of science of secondary maturation. This experience will leave you with a greater understanding of the innovative techniques that impact our private select single barrel flavors before and after the finishing process. Your 1-hour tour will conclude with a tasting of 3 expressions. That was $45 and guided by Jeff. Our Jeff.
I will say this. Evan Williams also left out, they let us taste their raw distillate.
Oh, yeah. Right.
All right. So before we got to the tasting, we were walking through the plant, and he had a little area set up where he gave us a little tiny half shot of their white dog, their moonshine, if you will, before it goes in the barrel. And of all those, and I've tasted quite a few now, that was the sweetest one I've ever had.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best one, but it definitely was sweet. And considering we did a moonshine episode, every distillate that we tried on this trip was better than any of the ones we had on that.
Yes.
Except maybe the Buffalo Trace number 1.
No, I think even that.
Yeah,
I think
even
so.
that.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because we kind of did again on Angel Envy.
Yeah, he had a bottle of it and he just poured it in our hands, and he's like, because he wanted this like to feel.
It seemed like a rule though, like almost like some places didn't feel like they were allowed to do it. I don't know if licenses are different. So he's like, here, I'm gonna squirt it in your hand. If you want to taste it,
I can't stop you.
like the way you like drink water out of a hose when you're a kid. You know what I mean?
That's right. So we're like licking our hands to taste it.
Yeah, and actually it was not bad, but it was definitely different than the Evan Williams.
It wasn't bad. One of the cleanest distilleries I've ever been in.
Absolutely. Angel Envy is, you could eat off the floors there.
Yeah.
I mean that. Neat story. They had 2 buildings, and then where they have their doublers used to be an alley with goats in it.
Oh, that's right.
Back in history.
They would race goats up
they
and down.
closed it in and connected the 2 buildings to make one big building, and now they have a little sign that calls it Goat Alley there. So I thought that was interesting.
That was cool. Another thing that we got to taste was the fermenting mash right out of the vat. Like he dipped in a little thing and had cups, and we were
right. So
just nice surprise.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to get, we're not going to take you through the whiskey process, but the bottom line is you get the corns in the rye and you cook them up and you put them in a big fermentation tank where you add yeast to it, and the yeast breaks it down, and then you put that into a still and you cook that up, and the steam that floats away is your alcohol. You catch it, it cools down, it turns back into liquid, and there's your distillate. But in the process, it makes this kind of high alcohol beer, anywhere from 8 to 20% alcohol, I think is what we...
I think it's ABV. It was like 8 to 12, maybe?
I mean,
20 seems high.
One was 20. Yeah, one was
okay.
20. One was 20. I remember that. It was 8 to 12 until we got to that one.
Yeah.
And they're like 20.
Oh.
So we got to go in there and taste it, and taste it like a sour beer. I actually had a piece of rye in my mouth, like chewing on a piece of rye.
The grains
like
were still
bread.
in there, yeah. See, again, this is like we tasted the distillate at the one place, and then we tasted the mash at this place, and each place had something different.
Was that the first time you ever tasted the mash?
Yeah. I can't believe that the other people on the tour said, no, I'm not doing it.
I know. They didn't want to do it. I'm like, why not? It's just beer.
Right. So
Yeah, you paid $45. Taste it.
several other places let us dip their finger in, which seems weird.
Right.
But there's a reason that it's not frowned upon.
Because
they're going to distill it twice, right?
And it's high alcohol at that
and it's
point.
open to the air anyway. But that was not nearly as cool as doing an actual shot of it and having a chance to really put a lot of it in your mouth and really see what it is. It's a beer.
Yeah. So at the end of the tour, we got to taste 3 whiskeys, their regular port finished bourbon, and then they gave us a single barrel port finished bourbon, and then the private select barrel strength unfinished bourbon. this is not a product they even sell.
Right. What's the one we bought for Gabe?
That was a bottle and bond, 375 liter. We gave it to Gabe. We tasted it too. We tasted it here.
Yeah, when we gave Gabe the bottle, we made him open it and let's drink it. Which is really, we knew we were going to do that when we bought it.
That's right.
Gabe knew we were going to do that when we bought it too.
Yeah. After the tasting, it emptied us out into their cocktail bar.
Yes.
And we'll talk about cocktails on the next episode that we're going to do, because we're going to do cocktails. But on the way out, they had a motto on the wall, which I thought was really cool. It said, "Always finished, never done." So we left there, and right across the street, we're like,
Yes.
Let's go to this place. It's called Against the Grain, and we just had the best time there. We just kind of lucked into it.
It's just like a sports bar. It's attached to a minor league baseball stadium. It's on the street side, so even though the baseball season wasn't going on, it was open. When they were sat down, sports bar, make their own beer. Me and Jeff actually brought some of the beer home.
Mm-hmm. Right, it tastes like Cherry Garcia, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The guy came over.
Zach.
Yes. And he happened to be like, "Hey, you guys sit right here if you want." Yeah. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm like I'm a whiskey expert on this place and all that." All of a sudden, and we're like, "What are you?" And it's like, it was just really crazy. And he knows the master distiller of Angel Envy. So we're going to use him to kind of connect us and see if we can do something with Angel Envy. We did make a few connections down there. And they were advertising a flight of Lucky 7.
Yes.
Which is sourced from Bardstown Bourbon Company, right? Which was foreshadowing for later.
Yeah. The Holiday Toast and the Jokester, and there was a third one that we can't remember.
Yeah. It began with a P, I thought.
Maybe. Oh, they do have the proprietor.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah,
okay, that was it.
But they had 4, Scott.
Right, and we tasted a fourth one.
I've got pictures.
Oh, do you?
12 seconds later.
Okay, it was the Workhorse,
Oh, the Workhorse.
the Holiday Toast,
Yeah,
the Frenchman,
the Frenchman
and the New Yorker.
and the New Yorker.
not
So
the
I was
proprietor.
completely wrong. I thought it was the Jokester and it was the New Yorker.
There we are.
And not the proprietor.
So-
but the other one you said.
So that's something like I don't think around here you would see a flight of Lucky 7.
No.
And it wasn't crazy. It was like $25.
Yeah, we bought it and we all just tried.
Yeah, we all just sipped off it because alcohol kills all germs.
That's right. The third distillery that we did, we went to Prohibition Craft Spirits. They make Nulu, as Ed said earlier. It's located in the Nulu district of Louisville, which is sort of east of downtown, sort of going
Right, like
back toward
New Louisville.
Yeah.
Like in case you're not on that, everybody.
going back in the direction of our house where we were staying. The tour we took is their only tour, called the Prohibition Themed Tour. One of our expert guides takes our guests on a grand tour of our museum, covering exciting topics from the wild history of the Prohibition era to our very own criminal origin story, as well as a look at our distillery from an in-person explanation of the distillation process used in making our bourbon. The 45-minute experience culminates in guided tasting of several of our spirits at our beautiful tasting bar. The price was only $25.
Yes.
Probably from the amount we drank
Yeah.
to the price, our best. And this was another Bob who guided us.
At first, I didn't have high expectations because we just walked into almost looked like a dive bar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there were sort of like the denizens of the bar were all hanging out there.
Yeah.
But the best tip is be kind and be friendly to your bartenders, because that guy, Bob,
Yeah.
he went all out because he must have liked Ed and Scott.
He didn't like you?
Plus, we mentioned the podcast, and it's a natural thing to have pride in your distillery, and they want us to know why they're good and also how good their stuff tastes.
Yeah. The other people who happened to be, like Jeff was saying, they looked like the denizens of like the regulars at that bar. Turned out to be a family, like 10 of them. They were all together on the same tour.
No, but he's right. Some locals left right before the tour started.
Oh, yeah.
He was
They were
right.
there.
There was some denizens there.
That's true.
And they were definitely different than us or the tour group. Like
Yeah.
they stood out as being someone who just came out in like sweatpants and a wife beater to get like,
Jesus.
I don't like the term myself, but it is what they call them.
Right.
They didn't fit with the rest of us. And then they're like, oh, you guys have to leave. We're closing up. So they left, and then we went on the tour.
I forgot about that. So we went on the tour, and it was, they had like dioramas and movable walls where they showed just like Prohibition era stuff.
It looked like an elementary school cafeteria during science fair.
Right. Yeah, it was.
Exactly.
It was sort of a science fair kind of thing.
They had these like movable walls with all the pictures and stuff on
Yeah.
it.
And then they took us back into their migraine-inducing warehouse where they just had barrels just fucking everywhere.
Right. So this is my perspective. You walk into a really small dive bar. You go around the corner into an elementary school cafeteria, a small one, like a small school, right? And then all of a sudden you just go through another door and there's a rick house. It was like Wonka's factory. Inconceivable that there was enough room there for 800 barrels it had in there. Each barrel weighing 500 pounds, each stacked up on top of each other the way you stack your coffee mugs in your cabinet.
Right, they weren't on their sides like most people do.
And they weren't on a rick. They were just stacked.
Yes, yeah. I don't know how they keep track of all the stuff that they have.
I've never seen one stacked like that. You know, they seem to like, wow, it works fine for us.
All right, so here are the whiskeys and other spirits that Bob had us taste.
I will tell you that my list stopped after about the fifth one, and I added a random one in the morning. I could tell because it was completely out of order. This is where Ed goes, not off the rails, but I stopped doing my job. I just started drinking whiskey.
Yeah. Well, that's why there's two of us, because I wrote them all down. And then when I didn't want to write them down anymore, I took pictures.
But Scott was driving, so he was taking much smaller sips than me. He was like, I'm not going to catch a charge my first night in Louisville.
That's true, but there were so many that Jeff ended up driving home.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. So we had a Nulu Reserve bourbon, the toasted bourbon, the toasted French oak bourbon, the double toasted French oak bourbon, the maple brulee bourbon, the Amburana finished bourbon, single barrel rye. And then they have another brand that they're highlighting now called Hazelbaker, named after one of their founders. Hazelbaker Bottle and Bond Kentucky Straight Bourbon, Hazelbaker Bottled and Bond Indiana Straight Bourbon. And then we tried 3 agave spirits, basically tequilas, but you can't call it that because they're not from Mexico.
I drank every one.
Yeah, Reposado, Añejo, and Extra Añejo.
Yeah,
Can't believe we got out of there a lot.
Now, I mean,
when you read that list,
I know.
I mean, there are
right?
half
know that
ounces.
we all drank it.
Yeah. Remember, that was our third distillery.
Yes, one day. This was all one day.
Right. We also had the Manhattans at lunch in the middle of all that. You know what I mean?
Plus all the tasting.
Plus the beer we had along with the Lucky Sevens. So,
Oh my God, we drank so much.
I will say this: no other day did we equal that much drinking in Louisville, except maybe.
Maybe Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday. That's a whole other thing.
That's a great thing. Okay, so we're at the end of Monday. Now we will finally get to drink something.
Yes.
So we didn't actually buy a whole lot of whiskey on Monday because we were kind of slow in a roll. I think we were anticipating buying more future distilleries, which we did. So the whiskey we bought back, what we hadn't featured on the podcast before, is one that Ed got, the JTS Brown Bottled and Bond Bourbon. Monday Quick Taste.
Right. This is a famous old style brand that appeared in some Hollywood movies back in the day. Most famous, I think, The Hustler. Paul Newman was drinking it. Everywhere he'd go to, he'd like, give me a JTS Brown bottle and bond, and they would bring it out for him.
So I got a short description.
Yep.
So while we nose it. JTS Brown Bottle and Bond Bourbon is named after John Thompson Street Brown Jr., who opened a wholesale liquor business that would later become known as JTS Brown and Sons, and decades after that, the Brown Forman Corporation. The brand began production in 1855, and after the Civil War ended, JTS partnered with his half-brother George Garvin Brown, the eventual founder of Old Forester, greatly expanding the brand's reach. In 1874, the partnership between JTS and George was dissolved over a disagreement related to the quality of their products, and through several mergers and acquisitions, the JTS Brown brand ended up at Heaven Hill, which made it into the Bottle and Bond bourbon we have today. It's 4 years aged, 100 proof, 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. The MSRP is $15.
And, yes, and I spent $20 at the distillery for 2 of the bottles because I thought that was a bargain, right?
Yeah.
And then I did get another one in a liquor store on just principle for $13.98.
Because we gave Gabe one.
Well, I gave Gabe one of the $20 ones because I paid $20 for one of mine too.
Yeah.
So I'm not sliding him the cheap one. I drove to Kentucky, goddammit. He knows that. I'm not yelling at you, Gabe. I'm yelling at Scott.
Right.
So $13.98 is what I saw it for, and I laughed. That means I actually got fucked out of $12. But anyway.
I mean, it's a very traditional bourbon.
Yeah.
Smell.
Yes.
Caramel.
Yeah, me and Scott had
Vanilla
this.
caramels.
We had this once in our life at a cigar lounge that someone had brought it back from out of state, and we got to try it. It was a handle of it, I think. Wasn't it like a big?
Yeah, I think it was a big bottle.
It was a big handle of this.
This is really good.
Yeah, you taste it?
You have like a perfect mixer.
So here's my take on it. It has a spectacular beginning and palate. It tastes great. Caramel, vanilla,
Cinnamon.
cinnamon.
I get so much cinnamon on it.
It is a beautiful whiskey with no finish.
Yeah,
Like,
it
the
kinda
finish is just
dies
a
off.
little bit of bit of spice and a little bit of burn in the throat.
Yeah, and at 100 proof, it tastes 100 proof. All of it's 100 proof, for sure.
It's not unsmooth, but it's not smooth.
Yeah.
It's not harsh. It has tremendous flavor. It is a wonderful flavor profile, and it does not taste to me like Evan Williams Bottle and Bond either. So
Yeah,
they're doing something a little bit different.
I mean, for a $15, $20 bourbon, I mean, this is wonderful. You could drink this straight and, as Jeff said, put it in cocktails because it's cheap enough to do that.
Oh my God, yeah, right. The same thing with its sister mate, the Evan Williams bottle and bond we just talked about.
Right.
I'm adding some water to try to take it down like 90,
Oh, yeah.
95, 94.
Do that. You want
See if it cuts the harshness a bit. I'm going to like to thank Jeff for trying water out when we do these scientific experiments, because I know he doesn't normally do it. He is the knight who says neat.
I mean, it tames down a little bit of the heat of the water, as you'd expect it to do, but it also kind of brings out more oakiness.
Yeah.
Oh, that helps us a lot. 5-6 drops of water on this opens up more cinnamon, brown sugar now.
Yep. Makes it
And
sweeter.
actually, a little bit more of a finish now, I think. I don't know why, but...
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
maybe. Right. It could be the alcohol was so powerful that it kind of just dried it.
I know you probably didn't do this, but did you get tasting notes on this?
I did.
Oh, did you?
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to hear what someone else thinks about it.
I got breaking bourbon.
Okay.
On the nose, caramel, brown sugar, light oak, sharp rice spice, and ethanol.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Said brown sugar.
Yeah. Palate, brown butter, sugar, slightly tannic oak, peppery rye spice, and a thin vanilla cream. On the finish, rye spice, light caramel, dry oak with a quickly fading note of vanilla, but with a mellow heat that simmers for a surprisingly long time.
Right. So he just said quickly fading.
Yep.
Because he doesn't want to say this, which is what we said. Quickly fading finish with a residual alcohol, which is exactly what we tasted.
Yep.
Hey, you know what? We've been doing this long enough. We're actually starting to sound like we know what we're doing. So honestly, it's just so versatile. I'll take it to like a football game where we can make cocktails with it or something like that. Or, just something you could throw a cube on it if you want.
And definitely something to just take it to a party.
Ton of proof.
Yeah.
$25.
Yeah. So we can sip on this while we go into Tuesday. Tuesday, we had breakfast at home because we bought stuff.
Yeah,
so
eggs
we
and
ate
ham.
it.
We
Yeah.
had ham and egg with a nice sourdough bread I got.
Yeah, you can't eat out every day.
No,
It was an expensive trip enough.
that's what he said.
Yeah, hold on. So the first distillery we did of Tuesday, which is the fourth distillery overall, we went to Kentucky Peerless. This was in downtown Louisville. It's the westernmost distillery on Whiskey Row. The tour we did was the DSP KY50 tour. That's named after the DSP numbers, the distillery producer number that you get from the government. The description.
Right, who was one again?
One was,
Was it
was it Old Forester?
Old Forester? I think they had
Was it Evan Williams?
number one was I thought it was Jim B maybe or
Was it Heaven Hill?
I don't know. Well,
We'll look it up.
Yeah, not a big deal.
The description is, join us for a behind-the-scenes distillery tour. Experience how we craft fine bourbon and rye whiskey from grain to bottle. Each tour includes a complete whiskey tasting and lasts approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. It was $28, and our guide was Alex.
This was the smallest distillery by far. It was hands-on craft, one barrel at a time. Like a guy filling it like you fill your SUV on
Yeah.
the, you know what I mean? Just like pumping it in like we're doing toasted bourbon today, Bottle it right there. It was amazing. And we got to taste it out of the barrel.
Right.
Which was delicious.
Spectacular.
It was our first thing we drank that day was right out of the barrel. Alex just popped off the bunghole, or the bung, I guess.
Right.
And scooped us out like shots of it for our tour group. And Nick was there, one of the distillers.
Yeah, it was the one tour where I felt like we were walking people's workspace.
Yeah.
People were just working all around us, moving pallets around. They're working on the bottle line,
it looked
dumping
like,
barrels.
like they were touring us to buy it. Like, you know what I mean?
like to buy the whole distillery.
Right.
yeah.
Like, so, So
Here's how the whole operation works.
Exactly. Everybody was so friendly. Like there was no pretensions in there. And then the tasting was delicious. Listen.
Listen, I'm listening.
I have never sipped a Peerless spirit that wasn't good. Not one. I've had about 5 or 6 of them. I've never had one that I wasn't like, man, it's good.
Yeah.
And that one out of the barrel is one of the best things I've ever tasted in my life.
Absolutely, me too. We're definitely doing a standalone episode at some point about
Yes,
Peerless.
yes.
We have 4 expressions,
right.
all different ones.
We
between
all
the three of us and
bought a
Gabe.
bottle.
Yeah.
And we bought one for Gabe too, so he can be part of that episode.
Yeah, so the whiskeys we tasted on the tour, the small batch bourbon, the double oak number 2 single barrel bourbon, which I think you bought, Ed, and I think that was what we tasted out of the barrel. The small batch rye, something they call fruit cocktail single barrel rye.
Which Jeff bought.
The double oak rye and the toasted bourbon. And the toasted bourbon we bought for Gabe. And then I bought a rum finished bourbon that we did not taste.
No, I don't think we tasted Gaze either, did we?
No.
Right. So my memory will fade on that taste. I drank so much whiskey that
absolutely.
week.
Yeah.
So.
By the time we do the episode, we'll forget.
Yeah.
We install our first distillery cat.
Yes. Right. So as you can imagine, storing lots of grains, corn, rye, Mises, mountain Mouses.
Mises. I love the Mises to pieces.
Yeah, mesis could be a problem. So most distilleries handle it by getting some cats. Because first of all, when the mice know the cats are there, they won't go there. And second, if they are there, the cats find them really quickly. And I understand it because I once had an old fat cat and just laid around the house all day, you know. And then if a mouse came in the house, the little field mouse are fast as hell. They're a blur. If you see them, they're a blur.
Yeah, you're like, what's that?
Yep. And I come down in the morning, there's a dead mouse at the end of the steps. Like, God damn it. Like, how did he do it? It's amazing. And, you know, Jeff is the cat expert here.
Yeah, Jeff's had a lot of cats, so
You know.
yeah, he knoes the whole mouse thing. Don't they come like and deliver it to you? Did your cats ever do that?
Yeah, well, sometimes they'll deliver to you in bed, which is something my wife is very fearful about. So when they deliver to you, that's their way of giving you a present and saying thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
They like, look what I did. I did something good, right?
Right
Then
here, this is for you.
Right. So it was funny. Everywhere we went, including this place, the cats just seemed to like go to Jeff. Like Jeff walks over, he's like a cat whisperer.
He is.
He's like,
Well, they know that they can tell. Yeah, the cats are very perceptive. They really are. So we left there and we went back to Nulu to meet somebody that Bob was going to introduce us to.
Yeah.
But they were closed. We called them. But
They might have been in the back, but they weren't in the front area, and he didn't answer.
So right near there was a place that the guys at Kentucky Peerless told us about that we should visit called the Neat Bourbon Bar and Bottle Shop.
Yes, and it was neat.
Yeah, which was a tasting bar and shop that sold vintage and hard to get whiskeys. And the bottle shop where you can buy these things, I mean, the prices were extraordinary. I mean, there was one that was $15,000, one of the bottles.
Well,
highest thing.
I mean, the two he's talking about, one was from 1917.
Yeah, they weren't all $15,000.
And one was from 1919. The 1971 was from the National Bourbon Company, and it was bottle and bond. But they had some Pappy's unopened bottles now from 92. And if you know that the 93 Pappy was the year, you know what I mean? You go in there, and by the way, they were $4,000 or $5,000, which wasn't crazy compared to what people want for Pappy up here anyway.
Yeah.
So the weird stuff was when you saw like a 1967 Old Crow for like $600. You're like,
What does
still
that
Old
taste
Crow.
like?
I don't know if the year I was born made it any better. But what was neat about the place was you could go next door and buy drams from old bottles. So some of them were really interesting. If the neat bar was up here, I would spend more money at it. When I had a couple dollars, like, I'm going to go down there and get like, then Blanton's 92 Blantons to see what it tastes like from 1992. They didn't have any Seagram 7. I've always wanted to try a Seagram 7 from the 80s.
Yeah.
So what I did was I got the Seagram's benchmark from 1975. And God, it was interesting. I'm sure it just tasted interesting because I knew it was so old. I mean, I was born in, well, let's just say before that, but not much before that. I think I was like 6 or 7 when that came out. So I thought the flavor was very good and I really enjoyed doing it. It cost me like $22 for an ounce, though I could have gotten a half ounce.
Could have gotten a half ounce, Ed. So the bartender, she's telling us what we can get. We can an ounce pour, and she says, and there are ways that you can get a half ounce pour. So we're drinking our ounce pours. I got a Colonel Lee from 1998. Jeff got 2 things. I think you got a Blanton's Gold and the Takara Red, which were from 2023 and 2024. So they not only had old stuff, but they had new stuff that it's allocated. So Ed says to the bartender, so how do I get a half ounce pour? And she kind of like shorts out. Like, what are you even asking me? She looks at us.
Then I see those two look at each other, and I'm like, fuck. You know what I mean? 'Cause I'm like, I know what's coming next. She goes, you just tell me, and then I just pour you a half ounce.
And then I stop halfway up.
That's not what she said. She just said, just tell me and I'll just pour you a half ounce. Yeah. But Scott like created a whole thing where she's like saying like, well, you see, I go to pour like an ounce and then I stop halfway through. Because she kind of made it feel like you have to buy a flight or something. I don't know.
You could just ask me.
Yeah, she just asked.
You just ask.
So those two are losing it. She seems almost awkward, like she feels like she set me up and didn't mean to. And I'm just like, go ahead, guys. That was a good one.
Right, she was trying to be as nice as possible. Is your friend slow? Like she's looking at it.
So like for the rest of our time now, anytime somebody mentions the half ounce around us, it's going to be over until we die. It's here forever now.
But what resulted from that was I was laughing so hard I had to get off my stool and walk to the back of the bar. And when I got to the back of the bar, there was a display case. And it was like one of those moments in a TV show and you see something and you hear the angel music. And there on this display case was Blanton's Takara Red, Blanton's Gold, and Blanton's Black, I guess. And,
These were the Japanese releases that they'd gotten back, right?
right.
Yeah.
So I was like, fuck that, I'm going to buy it. Because I can't find it here because of all these people just like me that search it out.
Right.
So I got the Takara Red.
And the special thing about it, you were missing your B Blanton thing.
So that's a tragic story, actually. I could have had another pour of Seagram's for the tragedy that he went through.
So I have the Blanton's corks, and I have them on a stave, and they're in order. So about 6 months ago, we had a contractor come to the house, and he's working in our basement. And like 2 weeks later, I go downstairs, and I notice the B is missing. I'm like, motherfucker. So they also had a fish bowl of all the cork.
Right, in the bottle shop.
And,
Yeah.
And I searched through that. I found a B. I fell on my sword. I told the story to Ed and Scott. I said, I had a B, but I'm buying this one.
You
had
had
to be.
earned it. Somebody took it from you, so you're allowed to replace it any way that you wanted to. We approved the purchase.
Yeah. So after we went back to our Airbnb, I opened up the Takara Red, and goddamn it, if it wasn't a B,
It had a B on it, so you didn't need to buy it.
I didn't need to spend $20. But now I've got 2 Bs.
Oh, there you go.
Right, so if you have more work done in the house, you got a backup.
ahead.
Well, one has to stay in the bottle till you're done it, right?
Well, that's true, too.
So you need the other B to finish your set because you're going to take a while, I'd imagine, to drink the Takara Red.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
not taking that to your brother-in-law's for Thanksgiving.
Nope.
He didn't offer any of the Takara Red to us on the ride home.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Not that I expected it.
I'm a fool.
Yeah.
No, Jeff's very generous with whiskey. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, he is. So just a few doors down, we ate lunch at Ditto's Grill.
Ditto suggested to us by the Neat Girl.
Yeah, so yeah, go right down there.
Yeah.
And they had the best salads ever.
Like side salads. You go to places, side salads just enough.
Maybe
to
we were
eat.
just in the mood for salad, but
I
I think
was.
those were really good salads.
I was. That's where I ordered salmon. I was like, Monday was so toxic. It's like, I need to not eat anything toxic. I woke up that morning feeling like I can't do this every day.
Yeah. Then, as we were leaving, just this large noise.
And
Building shook.
I had to take a recovery step. I was literally knocked a little bit off balance.
I turned around and was like, holy fuck, did you feel that?
Yeah, and the bartender was like, what's that? And I'm like, what? And then Scott said, it feels like a truck just crashed into the building.
Yeah. Yeah. So what eventually ended up happening is that there was an explosion about a mile away of a chemical plant that makes food grade chemicals for like soda companies and
Yeah,
stuff.
soft drink stuff.
Yeah. And we didn't figure it out until later that day. So we leave. We're like, oh, I don't know. That was weird.
It was
Whatever
weird.
that was.
Yeah,
Then we get to
strange.
the car
Yeah.
and we start driving to the next distillery. And we can't get there because we kept getting stopped because of police activity and fire engines and rescue
every
vehicles.
ambulance, fire truck, and cop in Kentucky drove by us. And I had to do a U-turn at some point in
Yeah.
the middle of all that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like I pull over and like, oh, we're going the wrong way. So I do a U-turn and then I have more cars coming and I'm in their way and they're like honking at me. And it's like, and I'm like panicking.
We're getting angry now. It's like, we can't make it to the distillery. People died. We're such assholes.
It was terrible. But we didn't know until we got home.
We didn't know.
We had one channel on the Airbnb and it was just good enough to show us the explosions.
I know. Yeah.
So God bless those people, but imagine if we had blown ourselves up in Kentucky. How
I know.
Well, maybe that would have been a beautiful place to go. I don't know. Maybe
That's the way to go.
Right.
With
Maybe,
a full belly of bourbon.
Yeah, you know how like some farm animals just go away to die. Like I'll make disappear. Like where's that? He must be down in Louisville.
Yeah. He went to a farm in upstate New York.
It's like the elephant's graveyard.
Exactly. Hey,
Hey,
hey, what's the big idea?
So the distillery that we were on our way to was Old Forester.
Yes.
Also in downtown Louisville, we took the Old Forester tour. The description, really simple. In 1870, George Garvin Brown signed and sealed Old Forester with a promise, a guarantee of the finest quality and utmost consistency. 5 generations and 150 years later, we've returned to Whiskey Row. On your tour, you'll see fermentation, distillation, barrel making, maceration, and bottling. The hour and 15-minute tour concludes with the tasting of 4 expressions. It was $32, and our guide was Leanne.
Yeah, what was nice about that was while we were walking up to it, we noticed the JTS Brown building.
Right next door.
Was right next door. I mean, it was something else now. It was no longer a distillery.
Right. They had the facade, though, that said it.
They still, right. It was built into the building, so you'd have to tear down the front of the building to get rid of it.
Yeah, so they were half brothers and they had a falling out.
Yeah.
The 4 whiskeys we tasted were the Whiskey Row series, 1870, 1897, 1910, 1920.
We asked if they had any birthday bourbon. Laughter from the gift shop. Laughter.
Yeah.
You had to win the lottery because there was like fights or
People were sleeping out front on the street for 4 days days or something.
Yeah, and they were just being jerks and having fights and doing all kinds of shit out there. So they said, screw this. We're going to have a lottery. And if you win, you come to the distillery and pick it up.
Right.
No more sleeping outside in tents like a shanty town. Another very slick modern distillery, like Angel's Envy, very clean.
Very new. You could tell it's only been there a few years.
Enormous copper column still, which you can see from their lobby, from their
Yes.
gift shop, and also from behind the scenes. It was called Big Penny, I think.
It goes
Big
all
penny.
goes all the way through, glass enclosed. Yeah.
They had that climate-controlled urban rickhouse, which was really cool. I think it was the only rickhouse in downtown Louisville.
Yes, it was very, very sharp-looking outfit. Old Forester definitely has a lot of money to throw around.
Yeah.
They did a nice job on it. She did a great job. She was fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure I've tasted the 910 before. I don't remember the 1910. Had many of the bonded and many of the Prohibition 1920.
Oh, 1920, I've had a lot.
But I'll tell you, one of my favorite bourbons this year was a single barrel from Benash. Had just single barrels, like cask strength. It was so good.
Yeah, that was good. The cool thing that we got to do on this tour that we didn't get to do on any other tour was watch a barrel get charred.
Yes, first time ever. They make their own barrels because they have their own cooperage there.
Yeah.
The thing is, not all barrels are made there, but they had a barrel making station in that complex. And we got to watch them take the virgin white staves and put the metal bands around them. We saw it char for 22 seconds, which was a level 3 char. And then they showed us the inside of the freshly charred barrel.
Yes.
Old Forester was a fun tour. And what was great is we were done. Even though it was only day 2, we kind of needed an early night. You know, I think we just ate
At home.
food around the house.
Yeah.
Jeff and I watched some Faulty Towers with
Oh, yeah. I went downstairs, kind of napped a little bit.
Monday took a lot out of us.
Yeah.
It was just how I expected to start the trip, and I wasn't disappointed.
No.
But when you count out how much we drank Monday, getting through Tuesday was amazing. And so we realized quickly that we have a lot to do, and we wanted to be effective. So we pretty much were all in bed by 10:30.
Yeah, it was an early night.
Yeah. And then up in the morning, we had to pack, right?
Yeah, we had to pack.
So we got up in the morning.
Hold on.
Okay. Well, I got up in the morning, Scott. That's a fact. Right? That's not an opinion.
No. Well, do you want to drink?
I do want to drink.
Okay,
yes.
then. So at the end of Tuesday, we're going to drink a expression that we bought on Tuesday. Jeff bought it. It's the Old Forester 1910 Old Fine Whiskey. Tuesday quick taste. We've never featured it on the podcast. Yeah, Ed, grab that and give us all a pour. On October 22nd, 1910, a small fire on the bottling line halted the production of Old Forester, so for a time, mature whiskey that had been ready to be bottled was instead stored in a secondary barrel. What emerged was remarkable enough to become an entirely new expression, Old Fine Whiskey. Today, to mimic that historic bottling, our regular Old Forester bourbon undergoes a secondary barreling at just 100 proof, which allows more of the sweet wood sugars to dissolve into the whiskey, granting it exceptional character, a smooth flavor, and a clean, crisp finish. 1910 Old Fine Whiskey was the fourth expression in Old Forester's Whiskey Row series, which now has 5, including the 1870 original batch, the 1897 Bottle and Bond, which we featured on episode 36, the 1920 Prohibition style, which we featured on part 2 of our Prohibition Whiskeometry, and the recently released 1924 10-year-old, which we got mad at because it's too expensive. The stats are at least 4 years aged. It's 93 proof in the bottle, 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley. The MSRP is $60, and it's Brown Forman, Shively, Kentucky. And I have tasting notes from Breaking Bourbon.
Yeah, and by the way, we did not see the 10-year at any point on the tour.
No, we did not get to taste it. We did not see it in the gift shop.
Because that might have intrigued us if it was a little cheaper there. But
Yeah.
the other thing they told us, just to give you some information, when you buy from the distillery, try to buy stuff only made at the distillery. Because stuff you can find in Kentucky liquor stores is going to be cheaper because...
Yes, this is so interesting.
The distillery said that by law, they can't sell it at cost at the distillery because it would basically put the liquor stores out of business. They have to sell it to a distributor and then buy it back for their own gift shop.
Yeah.
Like they're a private liquor store. So they can't even just take it from the warehouse, bottle it, and stick it in their...
I know. That's so interesting.
I think some people do. I think the small one. I'd like to know what Peerless does.
Peerless is just sneaking on the shelf.
I mean, and that's the other thing. It seems like they all follow the rules with different energy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We'll tell you about how strict Jim Beam was.
Jim Beam was, yeah.
A certain thing, but,
for sure.
But like, you know, one guy's like, I can only squirt the distillate in your hand. The other one's like, we're serving it on a silver platter to you. Drink all you want, you know?
What are you getting off the nose of this one?
All right, so this is 1910 Old Fine Whiskey.
I get so much light cherry,
Yeah.
like the bright red maraschino syrup.
So this is essentially a double barrel, right?
Yes, absolutely. I love the smell of it.
Ooh, really good nose.
Yeah.
I mean, vanilla, very strong, of course. I mean, that's given.
Right, it's like vanilla ice cream with the cherry on top. Oh my gosh, it smells delicious. Let's taste it.
Yeah, this was my favorite of the 5.
Oh, yeah, was it?
Yeah.
Tastes not thin, but so smooth. 93 proof. It goes down like it's 80.
Yeah, compared to the 100 of the JTS
Oh my
Brown.
God. Yeah, the JTS.
This is almost like water.
Yeah.
A lot of flavor, though.
Very tasty.
You can definitely taste the double barreling because there's some oak, but it's so subtle. It's like a sweet oak.
It is definitely oaky, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to put just a drop or two in here just to see what it does, because it doesn't need as much as a JTS Brown
This
does.
is a really nice, easy drinking whiskey.
Oh my God, yes. My only problem is with the proofage of the 1920 Prohibition style, the $64 price kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
At 93 proof, is this twice as good as a Woodford Reserve? Is this twice as good as Elijah Craig?
Right.
Twice as good. I'm not saying it's not better. You might think it's better, but is it twice as good?
Right.
Is it better than a Knob Creek 9-year? Four Roses single barrel for 46?
I know.
So it's like, I think this is just priced $10 more than it should be. If it was 48, I'd be like, good. 60, I'm like, I'll get it once in a while, but
Sure.
it's not going to be a staple.
That's why you do what Jeff did. You get the multi-pack, and you got 4 375s. So that's phenomenal.
That was a great buy for him.
Jeff, what do you think of this? You said it was your favorite.
Yeah, it was still my favorite.
Do you still think so? Okay.
It's still, like I said, it's got that subtle cherry flavor to it.
Yeah.
I like what you said about the sundae with the cherry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's has those flavors.
Yeah. It doesn't jump out at you. It's very subtle.
Yeah, right. It's not like a flavored whiskey, but it absolutely has those flavors in
it's
it.
very sweet.
Yeah.
Also, the finish is longer than the JTS Brown, but still rather brief, I think.
I think part of that is the 93 proof, possibly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it. I really like it, though.
What do you get on the finish? First of all, I'm getting cinnamon.
Yeah.
I see this as being like a good beginner's whiskey.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because it's not very harsh.
Yeah, there's no burn.
no off notes.
I'm going to call it second step, though. Like, after you try Woodford and Basil aging,
sure.
this is your next tier up, because it's a little bit more complex than that.
And a little bit more pricey.
Yeah.
I did get the cinnamon that you just said. I get a little bit of brown sugar, but it's very brief. It's like just a pop.
I got that.
And it's oak on the finish.
There's a lot of sweet fruits on this. Sweet fruits are what you end up tasting. Someone's plum is someone else's pear. I fully believe that.
Yeah. Let's see what Breaking Bourbon has to say. On the nose, oaky and lightly sweet with rich caramel, vanilla, fresh baked cake, frosting, and a dab of sweet pecans. That's interesting. On the palate, nice, thick, and chewy with a sickly sweet, heavy layer of burnt caramel and vanilla along with dark berries and toasted marshmallows resting on a layer of oak.
I completely agree. It is so vanilla. It's like a vanilla bomb for me, but I get so tired of doing vanilla as a tasting note, I didn't want to go into it.
Yeah.
But this
absolutely has it.
It's
Yeah.
vanilla all over it.
On the finish, the dominating flavor of charred oak leads the charge, intermingles with caramel and vanilla, and ends with an unusually long and satisfying notes of dry leather and cigar box, which I didn't quite get.
I didn't get really herbaceous.
No, and I'm still not getting it. We did put water in this, right?
A couple drops, yeah. That's what brought out the cinnamon for me.
Yes, that's right. Still, really good.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to Wednesday.
All right. Right, this was the McDonald's morning.
It was.
But we got there too late to make it great.
Yeah, we were on the road to Bardstown. We left Louisville behind. It's about 45 minutes southeast of Louisville. And we just needed something quick and easy because we had to get to our first distillery and we missed breakfast at McDonald's.
Damn it.
But, pro tip, apparently in Kentucky, they sell Krispy Kreme donuts at McDonald's, so I got one.
Right, so Scott wanted a glaze and coffee. They were out of glaze. That's
Damn
how
it.
popular. He went with a chocolate frosted Krispy Kreme and
did.
coffee, and he was quite happy with himself.
I was.
I went with the 2 cheeseburger meal. Trying to minimize the damage. I think Jeff ordered like a quarter pounder with cheese meal. And then the only funny part about that was he's in the back seat trying to eat. And we did sit and eat for a little while, but Jeff was only about half finished. So I said, well, we'll finish in the parking lot distillery, I guess. Let's just get there.
Yeah, and then Mario Andretti pulled a hard left. And I got my drink sitting on my lap. Oh. Fries are all over the place.
That was his first yellow card.
Yeah, I'd done well up to that point, and I was like, hold on, but it wasn't really a warning. It was more of an announcement that I knew I was being, well, I had to get into, no.
There's no excuse.
Yeah, there's no excuse
yes.
for it, but I made a decision to get into traffic, so I had to go quickly, or else I would have had to wait another, 18 seconds. You know how annoying that is. And so I heard these expletives coming from the back seat.
Holy fuck! Jesus fucking Christ! Justified belligerence. Jeff's mad at Ed's driving by proxy edition.
And I was like, oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry.
If he hadn't been eating, it would have been fine.
Right.
I don't know exactly what damage was caused, but...
So we did make it in one piece
My
to
bad.
the first distillery of the day, the sixth overall, the Bardstown Bourbon Company, located, of course, in Bardstown. The tour was called the From Distillate to Barrel. Welcome to the best 1 hour experience on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. At least we think so. Start tasting whiskey from the moment you enter our all-glass classroom overlooking 100 acres of active farmland. Examine and evaluate how our products are created, then age, develop, and finish in the most technically advanced distillery in the country. Our certified bourbon stewards will guide you through the entire journey that concludes in our newly constructed Rickhouse tasting room where we thieve bourbon straight from the barrel. It was $22, and our guide, our certified bourbon steward, was Elizabeth.
Bargain. A spectacular complex.
Oh,
Everything
so cool.
looked brand new. State of the art.
Yeah.
As far as the eye could see is just giant rick houses, 250 feet apart, on and on and on.
And they had that one where you could see inside and you could see all the barrels. It was like 6 stories high and like
59,000
barrels in it. Yeah.
It was amazing.
Unbelievable.
So that was impressive. The tour was great.
There was a first tour where we had headsets so we could hear the tour guide in the noisier parts of the distillery, which I thought was a really cool idea.
Highlights for me is, next to MGP, I think the second biggest sourcer in the industry is Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Right.
And when you go in their gift shop, there's an entire section of bottles that they source.
Yes.
And then as we went around to each fermentation tank that was cooking up, it had a company's name that they were sourcing. Either it was their stuff or it was some other buddy.
Yeah, it was very high tech too. The
Automated.
computer automation and everything on the wall, the big screens.
Yeah.
On the tasting, we did high rye bourbon distillate. So
Yes.
we got to taste the distillate again. The high rye bourbon maturate, they called it, which is basically
Halfway there.
Halfway there, 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
They say they age everything at least 6 years there. The small batch stave finish bourbon, which I think, Ed, you bought a bottle of that.
And we got Gabe one too. It was so good.
Yeah, and the Discovery Series bourbon number 10. On the tour, we got to taste from the barrel, as the description said. They called it their Fusion number 9, 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% malted barley, because I happened to write that down. And at the tasting bar that we ended up in after the tour itself, we tried the Silver Oak Cabernet finish bourbon, the Amrit Indian whiskey barrel finish, and the Origin Series bottled in bond.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted the Silver Oak to be so good, and I was disappointed in it.
Yeah, I know. You were like, oh, I will try that Cabernet finish. And yeah, it was kind of weak
Yeah.
with the Cabernet finish part of it.
Yeah.
They had a tasting room in the Rick House. So we're in the Rick House and they're talking to us and we got to taste from the barrel and they're like, turn around. And there was this whole, described it as Elton John meets Prohibition.
Very flamboyant furniture. Beautiful. Nice long bar. It was set up for some type of a tasting as well. So, you can go there and get something in there too.
Yeah, I mean, really nice facility. The gift
Yeah.
shop, they had a restaurant in there too.
Yeah, which we would have enjoyed had we not been on a tight schedule.
We were on a tight schedule. We had to get to the next distillery.
My boy.
Distillery number 7. Yeah, we spent some time here. Lux Row.
Lux Row, trying to rival Nulu.
Yeah. So this was also in Bardstown, just 7 minutes away from where we were. The tour was the Distillers Production Tour. The Lux Row Distillers Production Tour is for those looking to learn about Lux Row Distillers who have not visited there before. It's a chance to see the bourbon making process from start to finish, explore fermentation, distillation, barrel filling, and our famous and highly photographed barrel warehouse. Following the hour-long tour, enjoy an educational guiding tasting experience featuring 4 plus of our award-winning bourbons.
Right.
So that was only $18, and our guide was a young woman whose name we cannot remember, unfortunately. So we're sorry, whatever your name was.
It's amazing that we forgot because we spent so much time with her and she was so great. She was so great.
She was amazing.
To keep them safe legally, they only gave us 4 on the tasting.
Yeah.
But then I guess the gift shop's up for grabs.
That's right. We tasted 6 whiskeys overall, plus others that we can't remember. The tour itself had the Davies County Toasted Barrel Bourbon, the Rebel Foolproof Bourbon, the Old Ezra 7-year bourbon, and the Lux Row 4-grain double single barrel bourbon that I brought back. At the tasting bar, we had at least these, the Remus single barrel bourbon and the Penelope Toasted Bourbon, and then possibly others that we
drank more than that. I
We
don't
absolutely did, but I didn't write them down.
And they were taste, but they were all at least a half ounce. Some were a little bit more than that, to be honest.
Yeah. Pro tip, get a whiskey podcast, say that you have a whiskey podcast, and they will give you more whiskey.
Yeah, they will give you more after the tour to show you how great they are. And not that I didn't expect to be impressed, because I'm a big fan of MGP and what they do. I just didn't expect everything to taste so good there.
There were only 4 people on this tour, the 3 of us and one other guy, which is really strange.
He was a brand ambassador for Wild Turkey, or Maker's
Mark. Yeah, I can't remember his name. Sorry, guy.
He's all right.
He's okay. So after that, we had a late lunch at Maywood Country Club, which was just 6 minutes away from Lux Row.
We were rushing around, but like we learned in Kentucky, food comes out when they feel like it.
Right. We tried to hurry them along. It was totally our fault. My fault, really. I thought we had an extra 15 minutes to get to Heaven Hill, because I thought the tour started at 4. It actually started at 3:45.
As it was, we just got some sandwiches and we ate what we could eat, and it was fine.
I don't even remember. I honestly don't.
But we rushed to Heaven Hill, which we were a little bit late at, and it threw the whole thing into chaos, because like we got there about 10 minutes late, and then they had to find her, and then she's like, I have to move your bottles around, like, and then we found out we're the only ones on the tour, so like, why did any of that have to happen? Like, she was scattered, but she was a really sweet person.
Very sweet, yeah. So we went to Heaven Hill.
Do you remember her name?
I do.
Okay.
Heaven Hill is also in Bardstown. It was 8 minutes from where we were. We took the Bottle and Bond warehouse tour and tasting.
Never saw a warehouse. Though,
no, we didn't. So the price was $35, and our guide was Alexandria. So we didn't do the actual tour because we were late and it was raining, and it was just the 3 of us, as we said. So we'd been on so many tours, and she asked us. So she's like, I can kind of tailor this to whatever you want to do. So she ended up talking about their history and a lot about that 1996 fire that destroyed 7 warehouses and 90,000 barrels of whiskey. It was a huge tragedy in the area.
And changed a lot of rules.
Yeah, around the closeness of the rickhouses.
Right. If you see a distillery where the rickhouses are within like 50 feet of each other, they have been grandfathered in. Because they're not making you move buildings. So Heaven Hill is one of my favorite distilleries, and the people there were so friendly, I will say that. Especially the gift shop. They loved us in the gift shop.
The 4 whiskeys we tasted were the JTS Brown Bottle and Bond Bourbon, which we tasted earlier.
Yep.
The Henry McKenna Bottle and Bond Bourbon, which of course Ed is an incredible fan of. It's just delicious. The Rittenhouse Bottle and Bond Rye.
I was hoping it would be the Old Forester.
Oh, you mean Old Fitzgerald?
Oh, man, Old Fitzgerald, right?
Yeah,
Sorry, Old Fitzgerald, yeah.
And the Heaven Hill 7-year Bottle and Bond Bourbon, which we featured before on the podcast.
The only thing is, except for the JTS Brown, we'd had all them before.
We did.
But we never tasted them together. It was an interesting tour. We did learn a lot. The most interesting thing I learned about the fire day in 1996 was that some people got a cherry picker, went up on the outside of a building that was on fire, broke into a second-story office to steal the yeast strains out so that the flavor profile of their products wouldn't die in an inferno. I don't know, guys, maybe get a fireproof safe or something for that. I'm just thinking so you don't have to risk your lives. But they went there and got it. You know, we still have Henry Kenner to this day. You know?
I bet it isn't a fireproof safe now.
Yeah.
No.
There probably was then too, but they're like, screw it. I'm not risking that.
Yeah. Anything about this tour? Highlights, like you said, it was kind of disappointing, but only because it was raining and we were late, and it was threw kind of everything off.
And we were kind of buzzed up coming from Lux Row.
We
were. Like, we were.
Like, Ed and I had to say, so how good are you?
We had a discussion at the car, like, hey, you all right? I know I drank more than Scott there, but I have the extra insulation, and so I can drink a little more. So it's kind of a debate, like, what did you have? What did you not have? And Scott drove. He was fine.
Yeah, it was okay. So after Heaven Hill, we finally were able to go to our Bardstown house and check in. It was a nice little house on the outskirts of Bardstown, less than 10 minutes from the center of town. Then we had to have dinner. And we went to a dive bar in Bardstown called the Bluegrass Tavern.
Bluegrass Tavern, and I liked it.
We were a little scared.
Oh, walking in, we
got some looks.
It was more crowded than I expected. I don't think we got as many looks as we thought. I think we perceived the looks because there was like some type of a pool tournament. They had about 7 tables there. So they were into their pool in that place. Weird art on the wall. The owner is a fan of Van Gogh, and she had like her own version of like Kentucky Starry Night or something.
Yeah, with the back wall, this huge mural of Starry Night in the middle of a dive bar in Kentucky. It was amazing.
They only had beer, so it was a nice whiskey break for us. We drank beers.
Yeah.
I drank Scout and Scholar, a local brewery down there that they gave me a Leonard Skinner version. It was called Give Me 3 Steps, which is the name of the Skinner song.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Wait, Hushpuppies?
I loved the Hushpuppies. Yeah, they had like little tiny pieces of jalapeno and onions in them. Jeff had to get them too because they were lacking cornbread for his bean soup that he got.
Yeah. Jeff was about to like bust some heads.
Yeah, because I mean, who eats bean soup? I only ordered it because of the cornbread.
Right. And they didn't have cornbread.
They didn't have it.
But you know what? Hushpuppies is like deep fried cornbread.
Hushpuppies are great.
And what did you get, Scott?
I had grilled cheese or something.
Yes,
but with deep fried mushrooms.
Yeah, it was right.
Which were like volcanically hot.
Yeah, they didn't come out for a while, and then when they came out, you pop in your mouth and you never taste it again for the rest of your life.
I know.
But the ladies were really fun.
They're really nice. Well, one of them was definitely named Amy, and then there was another one who I can't remember her name.
Yeah, we just called it Amy and the other one. They'd just been there forever.
Forever, right? Yeah, they were John with the local guys coming up, and
And then we had a salted caramel cheesecake. I remember at the end.
Oh yeah, Jeff ordered that.
Yeah, we all had a piece of that. That was pretty good. Yeah, it's funny. I felt like Jeff was down there doing his own thing. Like he was playing a loner. Like he just came in from like a long haul across state.
Well, I felt a little alienated. I was sort of looking out over my shoulder. Like I wasn't worried about anything, but it just reminded me of one of those typical movies where the local comes up and says to the greenhorn,
"We don't like your kind around here."
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you Yankee boys lost.
But no, everything was really fine.
Was fine.
Yeah,
everything was fine. They were really nice people. It wasn't far from our house, so
yeah,
it was a nice finish to the night, and we all slept like a rock.
We all slept like a rock.
That was the house with the high beds too, right?
Yeah, the beds are like 10 feet off the floor.
Had beds that came with stools, so you could like get up into them. So how agile I am, so no problem for me. But
all right, so then that's the end of Wednesday. So the whiskey we have to taste is Lux Row 4-grain double single barrel. Wednesday quick taste. And if that sounds oxymoronic, kind of is. So here's the description of it as we swirl and smell it. Since opening their doors in 2018, Lux Row has been committed to producing the finest bourbons made for you to enjoy and for us to commemorate our achievements. Real roots, real family, real products, and our 4-grain double single barrel bourbon is no exception. It combines a single barrel of rye recipe bourbon with a single barrel of wheat recipe bourbon. While the rye heavy mash bill is spicy with hints of caramel and vanilla, the wheated mash bill is smoother with notes of caramel and citrus and a velvety oak finish. Together, all 4 grains, corn, wheat, rye, and malted barley come together to create a bourbon that's flavorful yet balanced. It is at least 4 years aged. It's 115 proof. The rye mash bill is 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley. And the wheat mash bill is 68% corn, 20% wheat, 12% malted barley. The MSRP is $80.
you paid a little bit more for it because you got it.
Yeah,
distillery, right?
yeah. I think it was almost 90, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I remember the smell of this. I get that Swedish fish scent. This is a really pleasant nose. It's almost as good as the 1910 nose.
Strong on the cherry.
Yeah.
Which is like similar to Swedish fish. So I get
Right,
that.
it's the cherry, not cherry. Ooh, it's spicy though. Definitely getting that rye spice, but it has the softness of the wheat.
What was the proof on this?
The proof was 115.
Yeah, it's
there. Hit you.
but smooth though.
Yeah.
It's smooth. Yeah, I'm getting cherries on the taste too, and I'm getting
A lot of cinnamon now.
there's very herbaceousness on the like leather on the finish, herbal notes on the finish, and at the end of the palate too. It's very herbaceous.
Yeah. Herbal oak.
Lots of 4 grains doing that. You're going to get an interesting flavor.
Yeah, 4 grains are always interesting, and they can be wildly different. Because we don't know what the exact mash bill is because they didn't tell us how much of each single barrel they put in, but put a little water in.
Water opens it up.
Oh, more cinnamon. I want to get like a Cinnabon kind of flavor. A cinnamon bun without the frosting. Because it's
Bite
not
your tongue.
that sugary. I'm not saying that's the way I prefer to eat it. But you get a piece that doesn't have frosting on it. And it's that dry cinnamon with the bread.
I think water helps it a lot. It tones down some of the fire, and you're getting much more of the flavor profile, especially in a neat glass.
Yeah, it's quite good. This was my favorite that we tasted on the tour because it has that spicy quality to it. Cherry and cinnamon. I mean, this is right in my wheelhouse.
I think it's a little spicy.
Maybe too spicy?
No.
No?
Good utility bourbon. I wouldn't use it as a mixer, but this
Right.
would be great, just neat.
Yeah, I mean,
Just a sip on.
I wouldn't call it a utility bourbon. I would call it like a specialty bourbon in the sense that I wouldn't buy it at that price because it's not my flavor profile. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that doesn't mean that this is an exceptional whiskey. It is. It's complex. The grains are in there blended. They're not coming at me separately. It's one flavor. So it's a very well constructed bourbon. But of course, it fits Scott's rye, spice, herbaceous flavor profiles that he likes compared to me, which is likes my whiskey a little bit sweeter, a little bit more corn forward.
Yeah, so we have tasting notes from the bourbon guy, just him, he's the guy. On the nose, big red gum, toffee, dried grains, and oak.
I was thinking Big Red.
Yeah.
But not that strong.
On the palate, spicy with a ton of cinnamon candy notes plus floral, vanilla, and oak. Man, we were right there. Finish, long and warm with more of the same on the palate. I couldn't really find in-depth tasting notes for this particular bourbon because it's kind of rare. It might be kind of new. I love this.
This is so you. Like what was a whiskey that we tasted that we all hated and you liked? Right. No,
It was a lot.
It was
Yeah.
recently. Like, no, you know what? I'm thinking of the beer episodes where we hated some of the beers.
Yeah.
We did the bourbon barreled beer episodes, and people were spitting their beers out, and you're like, no, I kind of like it.
I kind of like it. Yeah, I know that some of those weren't great, but I still could drink them.
Right, because they were bitter, and you have a wider range on your bitter flavor profile than most people do.
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Because I am bitter. So that's the end of part 1. We did Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to come back next week. You'll hear Thursday, Friday, encompassing our trips to 4 iconic distilleries: Willet, Jim Beam, Four Roses, and Wild Turkey. And then we'll give just our overall impressions of the entire trip.
I mean, we're halfway through, and the crew was starting to fade a bit.
Yeah, we're starting to fade a bit, just like we were on the trip itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we're going to rally. The funny part is, I'll say one more thing. We had brought in all our whiskey at this point into the Airbnb and boxed it up by person to try to organize, because at this point we were just throwing it in the car.
Yeah.
So we have all these bags and all these, but we were smart. We brought empty liquor boxes with us.
Yeah.
So we filled them up, and then at this point we had bought enough to each have our own box at least. Jeff had 2 boxes, but so Gabe had a box. Me and Scott had a box. So brought everything out of the car. We restacked it, and closing the door to make it stick was the trick trying to get out of that driveway. So we got in the car and we got the Willet, and that's where we'll start when we come back next episode.
That's right. All right. So for the Whiskey Tangent Podcast, I'm Scott.
I'm Ed.
I'm Jeff.
Cheers, everybody.
Later.